With the help of professionals, my own teaching experience, and asking actual newbies, I have brought this top 10 to you. This video is a baseline, something to start from to legitimately rise up and get good.
Number 10. Being too passive or gambling. These are the two extreme ends of the spectrum, and all players should stay in the middle. Let me briefly explain the mechanics. The reason this game's base works is because after attacking into a block, you get locked out, so the enemy is guaranteed to retaliate. This may sound bad because it removes control from you, but in reality you can still move and block, just not attack. This simply rewards the player who blocked. However, there is only a set window before you can guarantee an answer. Doing it too late is being too passive. Gambling, on the other hand, is completely ignoring the enemy's window. It is relying on them to delay their attack to connect your own first. Obviously, this completely counters passive play, and it's the prime reason people complain about spammers. They simply don't use the turn. Learn to follow up your block with your own blow, and you will not have these issues.
Number 9. Parrying and chambering too early. This concept is straightforward, but requires some basic knowledge. A swing is separated into wind-up, early release, and release, which you can see in the advanced settings. Wind-up is raising the weapon, and release sends damaging particles everywhere. Early release is the time between the two, which serves as an additional delay before doing damage. You can see when the release activates and its effect by enabling tracers in game settings. You may also input slow-mo in console for this. As you may have guessed, there is zero reason to parry before release tracers activate or are about to hit you. Learning the animation of a wind-up ending is paramount. I'll possibly make a separate video about this. About chambers, they have the exact same startup timing as a parry. The difference lies in the duration. Outlasting a chamber with a drag is very easy.
Number 8. Using shield and thus not learning about the game. Some shield players do not have a clue about base game mechanics and are stuck with a crutch for an eternity. The shield promotes bad habits. You can see this immediately when you stop using the shield. You start playing worse. I'm not saying you can't be a shield user competitively or anything, but if you'd like to learn the mechanics of the game and become a better player, get rid of it for now.
Number 7. Not chambering stabs, not blocking morphs, and not being able to answer stab spammers. Unfortunately, at the current time of recording for this video, stabs have barely readable animations. This means that the difference between a stab and a stab feint is hard to see, if not impossible sometimes. To protect yourself against stabs, I very heavily advise any new player to chamber stabs almost every single time. The latest possible morph is earlier than a feint, so a stab morph is easier to see than a stab feint. This does not mean that you should immediately start trying to react to morphs. There is a safe workaround. Here's how you deal with a stab and stab morph mix-up. When they start their stab, try to chamber it, and if they morph it, then block. Make sure not to block too early. The morph takes time to wind up just as any attack. Alright, so what if the enemy spams stabs? Should you just exchange chambers for an eternity? No, what you could try is turning a chamber into a morph. Morphs preserve your turn of attack. This is why you needed to block after a morph chamber attempt, because their morph is quicker. Now, let's turn that around. If they stab and continue stabbing, chamber their stab, then immediately go into a morph and try to land the swing close to the enemy so they can't be quicker than you. If they spam while using a shield, refer to my previous video.
Number 6. Not paying attention to the opponent's weapon. I have addressed this earlier in number 9,
The skill of actively looking at the enemy's weapon and physically seeing what the weapon does is called reading. It is different from the usual fighting term reading, where it is guessing what the enemy will do. MORDHAU attacks are all reactable due to their high startup, aside from certain very small weapons. The second you start looking not at the opponent's face, not to the side, but at the weapon, you will get a lot better. Footwork also plays a major role, because the further you are from the enemy's wing, the later it will connect. It's very hard to teach people how to footwork and read without mentorship, so just keep in mind that you need to fix footwork and focus on reading in the long run. Make sure to not overswing your attacks so as to not lose the enemy. After getting good, you will be able to react to most feints, morphs, etc. Number 5. Swinging out of range, throwing or shooting too close. This one's quite easy. It requires you to fix your defensive-offensive footwork. When you defend, you move backwards. When you attack, you sprint forward and lunge. Without specific circumstances, it is a bad idea to swing while walking backwards. You are likely to miss. About throwing or shooting, the 21-foot rule applies in the game. You must be able to pull out a melee weapon before the enemy can reach you. Make sure you are in that range. Number 4. Not doing a combo and not combo parrying. Comboing, as stated in the tutorial, is continuing to swing your weapon. I'm not here to discuss no combo versus combo weapons. No, the point is that a lot of the time when you miss, the enemy gets a free hit in, especially with a fast blade and dodge. You can fix this by comboing your weapon and then pressing parry if their weapon is about to hit. The earliest timing of the parry happens when the direction of the swing changes on the crosshair. This combo parry is much faster than a normal parry and allows you to lunge and punish a possible dodge user, but costs 10 stamina to execute. Number 3. Equipping crappy armor.
That is how a unicorn gets it done, son!
Not being fabulous is a crime. Sacrificing protection is even more so. When you are role-playing, you should not complain about getting one-shot or quickly killed all the time. The order of protection importance is as following: the torso, the head, and then the legs. A tier 1 helmet can be one-shot by some big weapon slashes. A tier 2 torso gets 2-shot by most weapons above 5 points in one way or another. Tier 0 legs get 1-shot by the executioner sword and heavily damaged by other weapons. I recommend using 332 and 231 armors. 320 is kind of unpleasant to fight in. Full plate is still pretty marvelous, you know?
Number 1. Not setting up the game properly. This part concerns FPS, hertz and binds. Make sure you have 60 FPS or higher. Otherwise, the gameplay will be incredibly random and unfair due to the animations not being reactable. Your hertz or refresh rate reflect the maximum amount of frames that the screen can show. A 60Hz monitor is worse off in competitive, but is still fine in casual play. You may be able to overclock a 60Hz monitor by having a 4x3 stretched resolution. Look it up if you'd like. As for binds, a 240-degree system is once again fine for casual play, but only 2 competitive players globally use that system for strikes specifically. If you do use the 240 system, make sure that your axis is reversed, so you apply a direction while aiming inward, because that's where you should aim in the first place, towards the enemy. Before I end the video, I would like to mention that I am an alpha tester who plays competitively, so my words have more merit than those newcomers making guides. I would suggest to stay away from such channels, as it is easy to be misinformed. Join my Discord instead and ask questions from experienced people there. This is it for now, but I'll elaborate on these topics and many others in future videos. I'll try hard to push out as much content as possible. I appreciate your support.